Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show, presented by Hugh Hattrick. Drive fast and try not to crash. Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick, and my very special guest, Chris Haye. Chris, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you very much for coming on board on the show. And we're going to have a great morning of chat all about sim racing and how to get started, how to make it work, how to improve, and what's the best kind of technical setup to get things running so you can be a professional sim driver. But you've been extremely busy over the summer. I've seen many of your videos. They've been incredibly exciting. You've been at Monza, Nürburgring, all over Europe, pretty much. How has it been?
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer. I got the opportunity to become a commentator for the SRO Esport GT series, which is the sort of official Assetto Corsa esports series. Sorry, Assetto Corsa Competizione, I should say. It's the new title rather than the old one. And we've been going to, as you said, Monza, Paul Ricard, Spa for the 24 hours of Spa. That was amazing. And last weekend, I was at the Nürburgring for both that and Sim Racing Expo, and a little bit of driving on the Nordschleife as well, which
fantastic.
Was,
I bet your hire car company didn't know about that one. It's definitely mine. Yes, that's it when you go through. That it sounds great. I mean, from the pictures, especially I saw the one from Monza, the setups that you were kind of commentating on at the races looked really, really good. It must have been quite fun to be part of that.
Yeah, it's esports is at a really sort of formative place, particularly in motor racing at the moment, where there's quite a lot of investment coming in from car manufacturers and from partners that want to be involved in it. So we're at a stage now where esport events look really good. I don't know if you've ever seen the F1 esports. They've got a huge TV studio type production.
Yeah.
World's Fastest Gamer does it in a similar way. They've got a great sort of studio setup. With the SRO esports, we've been going to the racetracks and setting up. At Monza, there's a building at the end, at the pit exit with a glass wall. So where my commentary box was, my back had a glass wall to the pit exit. So every 2 minutes, I'm looking over my shoulder and checking which, GT3 cars or whatever are going past in the background. At Spa, we were on top of the F1 pit lane building. So you could look at one side and you could see Eau Rouge and Radeon. You could look out to the other side and see the bus stop chicane. And just incredible locations and setups. Really amazing to be a part of. You have to deal with the noise a little bit. In fact, at Nürburgring, we were in one of the pit garages. We shared a wall, if you could call it a wall, charitably call it a wall. It's one of those sort of pull-down shutter things, like you get over the front of shops, but without
just a kind of
holes in it. So, you could talk to the people in the Kessel Racing Ferrari pits next to it, which is fine until they start warming their car up. This GT3 cars go through like a 10-minute warm-up process where it just sits and up to revs and down, and that gets a bit...
if you're trying to commentate,
particularly while you're trying to do a job, and the smell of petrol and rubber and everything coming through, it's all great in moderation, but after on the third day, it gets a bit I think.
They're pretty loud as well. The GT3 cars are pretty loud, so
luckily it was only the Ferrari next door, which I think is probably one of the quieter ones because it's one of the turbo cars, but still having it 15 feet away without a wall between you is plenty loud enough.
I know, that's the thing. Well, I was down at the Blancpain Championship at Silverstone back in May, and I actually appeared in one of your videos.
I did see you tweet there. I think we sort of just missed each other there.
Yeah, it was quite funny because when I got home and I was looking at the videos, and then I saw your one of Silverstone, and I thought, oh, I'll have a look at that because you were on the grid walk.
I believe.
I was there with Renault, and I just saw, there's me, a fat man walking past in the background, looking at the cars. But no, you did. It was a very, very good video that you did of that, of getting all the atmosphere of being on the grid and meeting the drivers and things like that. It was a very good race and a really good weekend, actually. Thoroughly.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed. I mean, I've been a long-term fan of Blancpain. I've been watching the series for a number of years now. I couldn't tell you when I started, but Ironically, I've seen less of it this year because I've been at so many of the events, and you just don't have time to really take it all in. I couldn't tell you who's leading the championship or whatever right now because I just haven't had that relationship with it. But it's very nice to be able to be a part of a series and follow it around on the road and get to know the people involved, sort of drivers and teams, but also all the sort of behind the scenes people, the broadcasters and everything like that. You sort of know that it's this sort of big family that goes on the road and has a lot of fun together. But being a part of it, the only thing I can really equate it to is it's like being in a band on the road. Something I did many, many years ago. But it's the closest thing I've found to replicating that. Now I'm too old to play guitar and people take me seriously. So.
No, I met David Perel from there. I told him I was coming, and I'd done an interview with him back earlier on in the year. So he said, "Oh yeah, come down and see us when you're there." So I got a selfie with David Perel, and he showed me around the garage just very quickly. But no, it was really, really good. And of course, he came streaming through the fields, his Ferrari, the Rinaldi Ferrari. So it was really quite exciting to watch. And the cars are properly loud. I mean, the Audis were incredibly loud.
The Laudis and the Lambos, those screaming V10s. That's the best thing about GT3, I think, is that you have those types of cars with screaming sort of V10 engines, and then you've got stuff like the Bentley, which is more low and rumbly. Then you've got the AMGs, which sound like World War I biplanes for some reason.
Incredible, aren't they?
Lord knows why, but they do. You've just got this variety of different car shapes, sizes, sounds. They all behave differently on track as well. I was standing, I went and watched the cars go through the final chicane at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit and watching the different attitudes of the cars as they turned in. So the Lexus, for example, can just go straight across the big sausage curbs they've got on the inside there. Whereas the mid-engine cars like the Lambos and the Audis just stay well away from the curbs, and they're really struggling to just get the car rotated properly. You can watch them really hustling the car in. And so it's just... And you don't get that in a single sort of formula series or a single make series. So, you watch the Formula One and the cars generally behave the same or within a small window. But get a Blancpain or an IMSA event or something where they've got GT3 cars and they've got all of these very, very different types of cars and then balance the performance them so they can all race against each other even though they're wildly different. It's amazing.
It was really good to watch. I have to admit, I really enjoyed it. And compared to watching the Formula Renaults before that, I mean, the Renaults, they were good in the proper single seaters, and they were close. But there was something a bit more, they were very, very quiet. Actually, I was surprised at how quiet they were. But when the Blancpain cars came on, they were properly. You really had to kind of take a step back, which is always a good sign, I think, when it's loud enough to kind of get your attention.
At Spa we had, I think it was a field of 73 cars. So we're commentating on top of the open-topped building, on top of the F1 pit building. And when 70 cars go by, that's loud. And I can tell you what's even louder than that, or certainly longer than that, is 70 cars going by when they're on a full course yellow. So you've got this 2-minute long train of cars going past on the pit limiter. Up against the pit. That's loud.
You certainly hear that.
Really long as well in a field that big.
It must have been quite an atmosphere though, because I mean, you've been to probably some of the best tracks in the world, and like Monza and Spa and Nürburgring. I mean, they're so famous, and I always remember Murray Walker's quote from Monza when he was talking about Nigel Mansell. I think it was way back in 1991 or something, and he was saying, that kind of the Monza history literally oozes from the tarmac. It's the kind of the charisma of the whole place. I mean, it must be quite special just taking a walk around the place,
Yeah, Monza's the best example for that, for sort of two reasons. One, you've still got the old bank circuit there, so you can go and walk up around the banking, and it is like stepping back to, the 1950s, a little bit. But also there's just lots of... Monza hasn't been as modernized as a lot of the other F1 circuits have. I'm sure the pit building has, and the paddock for the Formula One teams has. But you don't have to go far before. Oh, look, you're down the back straight before Parabolica, and there's just concrete sort of benches that have clearly been there for 50 years. They're utterly ruined. But you can stand up on them and watch the cars go past, and like everything around you has been there for 50 or 60 years, and
So it's got character.
It's a lot of character and history to it. In fact, in the building we were broadcasting from, the floor was made out of the original bricks from the circuit was originally made from.
Wow.
Very cool. So yeah, it's a circuit that respects its history. It's a bit difficult when you cater to Formula One to do that. You know, you look, if you've been to Silverstone over the years, you know how much it's changed and how much it's evolved.
Yeah.
Sure, there's still some of that sort of World War II airfield vibe about it, mostly because it's dead flat. But
that's it. Yeah.
Really, it has been very changed by Formula One, and I think that's probably true of most modern venues. You know, I went to Paul Ricard this year, and that's fairly unrecognisable from the Formula One circuit that before when it last raced there in the late 80s.
Yeah, it's completely different, wasn't it? It was Bernie Ecclestone that owns that, and then he painted it all with all these big stripes around all the track, isn't it? So it's kind of
it looks horrible on TV, but it's actually quite nice when you're there. Something that I don't think Paul Ricard comes across well on television, even in any event. I think he loses something. Being there in the south of France in what is one big party venue is amazing, but then none of that comes across on TV, and it just looks like, you know, the old test card image you used to get before.
It's kind of funny.
Started in the morning, expecting a little girl to be up there with a chalkboard.
It's that kind of thing. And I think with all the colours on the track, I always think it must be quite hard to get keep your eyes tracked to where the actual track is, because it's. But when you see it closer, I think that's actually a special runoff, isn't it? And the different colours.
Yeah. They've got different abrasive levels. The paint's got abrasive additives in it to help slow the cars down.
Yeah.
The blue is sort of mildly abrasive, and the red is very abrasive. So the whole idea is not only does it help slow the cars down for safety, but it also punishes the tyres if you run off.
Yeah, so you get that kind of thing. But I hope they don't do that, mind you, with every other track, because I think it would. I don't know if it would give you some kind of fit if you watch it for too long. I think with the different colours and so on, but it's that kind of thing. But no, it sounds like you've had a phenomenal summertime. What's been
a very lucky boy? Yeah.
Yeah. What's been your most enjoyable kind of race to commentate on? It's good close action and a good outcome.
I think the final race we did at Nürburgring this weekend was probably the best. We had the format of the competition. They do sort of 3 heats to get the various levels of drivers, sort of pro, silver, and am, through to on-site final. And the 3 heats we did were in the rain, and they were chaotic. They were rain races.
Yeah.
Exactly what you'd expect of them. But the final was dry, and we had just a race-long battle for the lead between 2 guys called Camille. Actually, as it happens. But, they were never more than half a second apart for the entire race. There were multiple attempts at overtakes. The guy in second place, Kamil Frenchek, never quite made the move stick, but it was proper tense, close racing, like the Hungarian Grand Prix was this year.
Yeah,
that was my favourite Grand Prix in decades. Yeah. While there have been other, probably more exciting races. So for me, it's that tension. It's that if it takes the guy 55 laps to make the overtake happen, great, because you can see the build-up. So you can see how he positions his car, trying to work his way to that overtake. You can see the overtake sometimes takes 3 or 4 laps to build up, to get close enough. That's what excites me. Not necessary. It's not necessary for me to have dozens of overtakes all the time to generate.
It's the ones that matter, the ones that count, isn't it? That make the race, isn't it? I mean, I thought Hamilton's run was phenomenal in Hungary. I mean, he really did push. And to be fair, I think one more lap at Spa last weekend, I think he would have got Leclerc. It was that close, wasn't it?
I haven't had a chance to watch the race yet. I was commentating. We clashed, I think, on the stream with the Formula One, and then haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But
no, it's a cracker of a race. Really, really good.
I think Leclerc's first win's been coming for a long time, and he very much deserves it, from what I can understand. So. Yeah,
I mean, he's really put the up on Vettel. It's only, I think, Vettel's done quite well in the races overall, but Leclerc's always been there or been ahead of him, and then either crashed out or had reliability issues and things like that, isn't it? But
and it's I think it was Leclerc's second year in Formula One, isn't it?
So he's still quite young. He was in Alfa Romeo last year, and then came to Ferrari this year. So second full year.
Yeah, just exciting for me to have a new winner in Formula One. Always.
Yeah, that
doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's good. It is very good. Well, I've got a couple of questions for you, for our viewers and our listeners who might be interested in getting going in sim racing. Now, obviously, there's a huge following for Gran Turismo on PS4 and things like that, and for F1 2019. But what would you say is the difference, or a good reason to maybe try things like iRacing or Race Room, rather than just go for a kind of PS4 or an Xbox kind of setup?
Well, I think the big difference between the console-based racing sims and the PC-based racing sims is the immersion side of things. There's a lot more emphasis on some of the stuff that makes it feel like you're more in a race car, and then you can get better equipment, and you can all of those side of things, which are quite sort of tangential and nice. But the thing about iRacing is the level of competition. GT Sport is really, really good. Its competition format is fantastic, and I'm trying to get a PS4 rig sorted actually, so I can do some more GT Sport stuff, because I've actually just really been enjoying it. But iRacing level of competition in particular is really top notch. You know, when you've got people like Max Verstappen and Lando and lots of GT drivers getting involved in it. You know, Christopher Mies I've seen is on there at the moment, and Raffaele Marciello has been on iRacing quite a bit recently. You've just got lots of big name drivers taking it quite seriously, which I think is a testament to the level of competition that they've built there. Personally, for me, the physics in iRacing are great, but possibly not the best out there. I don't want to get into that debate here because that's well beyond it. But yeah, I think there are two things that PC racing, as opposed to console racing, does a little better. The sort of physics side of things are a little bit more sophisticated, just because you've got all of that extra processing power, that horsepower, and the racing sims are developed for us nerdy types. So if you really want to get into your race, you really want to develop a setup on a car over a series of time. You want to develop a car over a season, even. That's what PC sim racing really brings. Whereas I think, you know, if you just want to jump on, have an hour-long race in an evening, and you know, have some fun with it, get a good level of competition, that kind of side of things, maybe the console things are a bit more appropriate. But I think the thing that I'm always keen to point out is that those two worlds have closed massively. It's not like it was 10 years ago where, you know, whatever, say GT4 or GT3 or whatever was out at the time was a world away in terms of simulation value to something like the first R Factor, which was the big sim at the time. So I think everything's coming closer together. So if you want to get involved in the sort of hardcore racing titles, I think it is because you've got this hardcore interest in motorsport and simulated racing, and you just want to take it just that little bit further, and you want to explore more of it. There's certainly the level of competition at the top in GT Sport, for example, is just so fierce, and incredible quality drivers. You mentioned David Perella earlier, and you know, he's heavily involved in GT Sport on the Sims. He loves it. You know, I chatted to him at the weekend about it myself. He's just getting into the PC side of sim racing as well. So there's more to come from that. But
I mean, there was Steve Alvarez Brown, you know, Super GT, was in Pro AM, the Pro-Am race, and was it Mikhail Hazal, the chap?
Yes,
and they won the race there, and that was in New York, and they got to meet the creator of Gran Turismo there as well, which was something
and
else.
The legend that is Juan Pablo Montoya.
That was very funny how he really annoyed him. It was brilliant. What did he say? Something like he obviously stays in his room too much or something, or he stays watching. What really, really annoyed Montoya like something else. I thought it was worth it just for that. But yeah, no, it was. He did extremely well. It does show you that. I mean, I suppose if you're in iRacing, and the next thing you know, you obviously have to be pretty good if you're going to be racing against Max Verstappen. But it will suddenly put the pressure on, because they'll be so much quicker, and then they're going to be very, very fast straight out the box.
I've not raced against either of those guys. I was in a practice session with Lando once, and I was just in a Ferrari GT3 challenge field, and I was just, the boy's quick.
Oh yeah,
which is because I'm only a few miles from Woking here, and I'm a big McLaren fan, so was quite happy to be absolutely trounced by a McLaren driver. So that's
yeah,
fine.
no, it's not going to do you any harm. But the kind of, I suppose,
if it was the other way around, I'd be very concerned. So.
Yeah. Somebody's filled up his Ferrari with diesel, but I think it's kind of like, but no, I mean the thing is they just know what they're doing, aren't they? They just know the lines. They just can just straight out the box. They go at some rate. One of my friends once we were at a driving day at Millbrook at the test ground, and Robert Kubica turned up with BMW at the time. This was about 10, 12 years ago, and what it was is it was a competition which my mate had won, and you got to go with 3 different racing drivers. One was a professional, so it's amateur driver, but in a professional league, and then he got a touring car driver. I can't remember who it was who was doing it. It was one of the current touring car drivers at that time, and they were in a BMW M3, and they had to go around the handling track, and each time they would go around faster and faster. And then the third run was with Robert Kubica, and he said that was just a step of just incredible. Even a touring car driver was really, really fast, but when he went with Kubica, he could do everything and more with one hand on the wheel. Just like that, as if it was slow,
Yeah, every sort of report I've heard about Robert is that he's just a maniac in any car he drives. He's just, he can make a shopping cart handle quickly,
Yeah. And I mean the fact that he was having the car sliding around all these handling circuits and having a big conversation in the meantime, I think says it all, really, isn't it? I remember there was an interview with Michael Schumacher when he was driving for Ferrari. I think he was test driving. It wasn't a California, but it was one of these open top cars, and he was taking it around Silverstone. I think it was an autocar journalist, and the guy was he couldn't ask him any questions because he went round. I think was it Cops Corner. Again, sliding with one hand on the wheel, and then Schumacher was saying, "Oh, why are you not asking any questions?" And and he was just like, "Well, he thinks he's."
Tell you what, it's hard being the passenger in a fast car. As I said, we did some lap. I went out with race department to Nürburgring, and we did some laps on the Nordschleife, and I had my friend Steve in the back doing some filming for my lap, and I kept every time I saw him in the mirror, he looked white as pale as a ghost, terrified. And I thought, I'm not driving that quickly. I thought I was being quite safe, quite well within my limits, because I didn't want to push it to start with, because it's the Nordschleife. It's
exactly.
there to try and kill you.
Yeah.
But then I jumped in the back when Paul Jeffrey from Race Department did his lap, and it's a lot harder when you're not driving.
Yeah, that's it.
It wasn't scary, but just trying to stay upright was was hard enough.
That's the thing, because it's the curbs, isn't it? It's the curbs at the old Nordschleife that are quite dodgy.
You just have to avoid them. What you don't get. This is a great racing sim real world crossover. Actually, is that they look bad at the Nordschleife. You don't touch them much on a racing sim, but you'll kiss them. You'll use them to help rotate the car. You'll do little bits because you can, and if you do hit them, it's generally fine. You might lose a little bit of lap time.
Yeah.
But what you don't get is some of them are good,
they're huge.
Oh, they're huge. It's like, if you touch one of them in a car, the best outcome is that you're going to destroy an alloy. Yeah. The best outcome is that you're going to destroy an alloy. The worst outcome, well, it doesn't bear thinking about.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of them are just stupidly high.
Yeah. Oh, you see so many accidents.
Respect your track limits there, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you drive well within them, isn't it? That's the thing. Yeah. But when you see the accidents on some of the YouTube videos, when you watch as they race round, and they suddenly get onto a curb going around the corner, and then that's it. They'll just spin off, because obviously if it's wet or if they just got no grip on them. But as you say, they can really kind of bash the car and give it. It must be quite a thump when you ride one too far, certainly.
Yeah. There's another problem, I think, as well, which a lot of those accidents, now I've driven it, I think are probably attributed to, is that you sort of lose a bit of the perception of speed. I wasn't going around there in a super fast car. It was a Golf R, so a sort of 350 horsepower drive, I think it is actually Golf. So it's not a slow car by any stretch, but it's not a racing car. But you go through some of these fast sections at, well over 100 miles an hour, 130 maybe. I don't know. I certainly wasn't looking at the speedo. And then you get through to some of the corners, and just they're so slow in comparison. You're screeching tires, the car's understeering, and you still think, I could probably go. I'm sure I could go through here faster. Why isn't the car doing? It's because it's a road car. You're on road tires. So I think there's this big difference between, if you're in a BMW, maybe not an M3, but you're in a, a 3.5 litre BMW of some description, one of the sort of normal exec mobiles, and you're blasting along at 140 miles an hour, and then you maybe can only do 50 miles an hour through some of the corners, So
yeah, because that's what it'll do. What's there's that famous, when you're about halfway around the Nürburgring, it's gone out my head. The corner is it the horseshoe? What's the one that
the carousel.
Carousel, yeah. That's it, the carousel. What is that like? Because it always is horrendous when even on a sim, it feels.
It was much easier in real life. That's one of the few bits of it I thought,
that was all right.
That's easy. And the main reason is because you can look up, you can look round the corner further. And even if you've got triple screens or VR, you've still got a limit to how far into the corner you can look. So as long as you brake enough and you get the car in and you don't do something stupid like hammer the throttle halfway through the corner or whatever, you're looking there, you're naturally going where you want to look. And that's one of the things about driving in real life that takes some adjusting to in racing sims and vice versa is you tend to go where you look.
Yeah, that's it.
You can look. You have to train yourself. I remember watching a video with, I think it was Valtteri Bottas, talking about how it did some eye tracking, and it showed how far into the distance he was looking. And he was looking almost like one or two corners into the distance on a racetrack because he's just looking where he's going to be driving to.
Yeah.
Whereas with a racing sim, you're sort of almost trained to look at where the screen is, a few inches in.
That's the thing. So it probably makes you a lot quicker if you're actually looking further ahead because you're taking it in.
Not only quicker but safer as well, because any problems that are going to occur further in the distance and not in the 10 feet in front of your car. No. I think it's something that new drivers on the road do a lot as well, is they tend to look very close in front of them.
We were always taught. I used to be a driving instructor, and that was the thing. You have to get people to look much well in advance, because otherwise they are literally looking at the front bumper if they can see it. But and so they're not prepared for things to happen. So there's no time to take things in. So if they look a bit further ahead, it's easier and less stressful, and they can manage it. But
I don't know about less stressful. It was a fairly actually. You know what? I'm writing the script for the Nordschleifer video that I'm doing at the moment, and I'm not going to say this because I don't think it'll come across well. But I'll happily do it in a podcast. Is before driving it, I had no fear. I wasn't worried about it because I thought, well, you know what, you can drive to your own limits. If it gets scary, you can just back off a bit. It's just a tourist lap. There's no problem. When I was driving it, and you've got the barriers whizzing past at 100 plus miles an hour, and you're, a lot of the corners you have to brake heading directly towards the barrier and then turn in. There are quite a few at Nürburgring like that. None of that scared me. When I got out of the car and the buzz had worn off a little bit, I started to get a little bit concerned that at no point during any of this proceeding had I been afraid. And that's a concern long term, because the first, I'm sort of making notes and saying, okay, well, when I go back next time, I'm going to do this, and
I see you're prepared.
It's in the blood. I've got to go and do it again and again and again. And I think maybe fear would be healthy. I need to find somewhere to find the fear, which I just don't have. It wasn't stressful. It was just really enjoyable.
Yeah. Oh no, that's good. Was it good weather when you were there? Was it?
Yeah. Well, we got in just before. It looked like it was going to rain, but it held off long enough, which was nice.
Aye. Because imagine if it's wet.
I don't fancy driving that in the wet.
No, because it has that overhanging mist coming in from the trees, isn't it? So it could be pretty dangerous on that one. But it sounds like you've had a fantastic time, and it's good that you can race around these circuits as well, and get real experience from it, and then you can go back and try and improve your lap time.
Yeah, I think it's a very German thing, actually. They've got this old racetrack. It's just sitting there doing nothing. They don't hold many racing events on it. So, open up to the public, charge them a bunch of money. Everyone wins. I know, that's the thing. Well, of course, I think the German government, they spent hundreds of millions of euros on it a few years ago, and there was a big kind of scandal about it because then they lost the Formula One contract or whatever, so they weren't able to. On the Grand Prix circuit.
Yeah.
The Grand Prix circuit itself is probably the best F1 level venue I've ever been to. That amount, not necessarily from a racing perspective or from a track side view perspective, but the actual complex and everything they built up around it is really impressive. Yeah, well, they spent hundreds of millions of euros on it, and then there was a big scandal because I think it wasn't being used, and then they didn't get it on Formula One. And I think it could actually there'd be some really good races at Nürburgring. It was actually quite a good GP circuit for that horrendous
first corner hairpin, though, that kind of, the start right is always coming together. It's there. And I remember there was one year when it was wet, and there were 8 Formula One cars went off at the first corner.
2007, yeah.
That's right. And Hamilton went off and had to get pushed back on, and it was it can be
the famous race where Marcus Wingelhock led a lap in his first and only Grand Prix.
Yeah,
he started on the wets when it was dry, and as you said, Hamilton and everyone else got stuck in the gravel track up at turn 1, and he led a lap in his Minardi.
That's right.
I remember that very fondly.
Yeah, no, it was quite an event. But no, I have to say, I'd love to go. I've only ever seen it on TV. A few friends have been and say how much fun it is. And one of my mates did do it in a Mondeo hire car, Mondeo estate, and brought his family along too. So that was the kind of planes, trains, and automobiles approach of doing the Nürburgring. Have a go.
It's definitely if you get the opportunity to drive it, give it a go. As I said, I did it with an instructor. From RSR, who do the ring taxis and do some instructed laps and stuff. So did it in their Golf R with an instructor, which took so much of the stress off of it, because if you're doing something stupid, they'll tell you. If you're taking the wrong line into the corner, they'll tell you. They'll tell you to brake. They'll assess your level and give you sensible guidance to go around. And that made it a really fun experience. Had I driven my car around it, my 17-year-old MX-5, I'm not sure. Well, one, if it made it the whole way around the lap, and two, I would have been so terrified of breaking it.
That's it.
And not being able to drive. I mean, the recovery, it's in quite good nick, so maybe it's worth £1,500. But the cost of recovering it back to the UK would be multiple times.
That's it. It'd be scrap. And the cost would be a huge amount of money to try and get all that sorted. But it sounds like you've had a great time, though. And I'm sure for our viewers and listeners, it's something that they'll all want to have a go at. So how much was it roughly to have a go to get your car around the Nürburgring now? Is it about...
I can't remember. I think from memory it's €90 to take your own car.
All right.
I didn't look at that. I didn't take my own car, and I couldn't tell you how much it costs to hire the RSR cars, because we did a...
No, that's fair enough.
Advertising and some other stuff. So luckily didn't have to pay for it myself.
Well,
we were told very clearly that we would have to pay for any damage, though. And if you write off a Golf R and take out, a few tens of meters of barriers at the same time, then
it costs you money.
You could buy a serious year's worth of wages there in one go. So don't do that.
Watch it for a decade at the Nürburgring Cafe.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's the thing. Oh, well, moving on to the next section, we've got, I've got a question here about technical requirements for example, if someone has a PC and they want to start doing iRacing or things like that, what would you say is required? Because, for example, I will give you what I looked up earlier and I put on my settings on my PC. I have, it's an HP computer, but it's got a Radeon R7 processor, or that's an AMD A10 9700 processor, Radeon R7, which is 4C plus 6G, whatever that means. I'm afraid I don't know. And it's a 3.5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Now, when I tried to go on, I think it was iRacing, and I downloaded all the stuff, it didn't allow me to really play it properly. The screen was very small, and I couldn't figure out how to make it any bigger. Is it basically my computer simply not powerful enough, or?
Well, yeah, there's a few things at play there. That sounds like a setting thing rather than specifically the hardware. I mean, that's an older series Radeon processor, I think now. So I couldn't comment specifically on whether that processor is powerful enough. But the key thing with racing sims is that the vast majority of them are actually quite friendly in terms of resources, particularly those that are geared towards the competition side of things. iRacing, for example, I can get twice the frame rate I can on a really modern, good-looking sim like Assetto Corsa Competizione or Project Cars 2. So the ones that are focused more on the competition side, and perhaps some of the ones that have been around a little bit longer with more established presence are a bit more friendly. And realistically, I think you can play iRacing on a sort of mid-tier modern computer without any real issues. And the same goes for Race Room and R-Factor 2, I would say, as well. Although all of these things are so dependent on settings. I can make, R Factor 2 is actually quite resource friendly a lot of the time when you've got things turned off. But as soon as you start turning on post-processing effects and stuff, it becomes one of the more hungry sims for power. So the question you've asked, unfortunately, is a bit of a, how long's a piece of string sort of thing. So lots of ifs and buts. But if you just if you've got a sort of a reasonably modern mid-tier computer, you should be able to jump into a bunch of the sims and start having a go. If you want to take it sort of to the next level and get into things like VR or triple screens and things like that, then you do need to really start having, particularly when it comes to video cards, more high-end stuff. And unfortunately, video cards at the moment are insanely expensive, and that can be a bit prohibitive.
Because you get those gaming PCs now, like you see them in Costco, and they've got very high computing power and so on, and they're maybe about £1,000 or whatever, or some of them are a bit more than that. I mean, would getting something like that be of any advantage? Or
I mean, a gaming focused PC, generally speaking, will have better or more appropriate hardware for sim racing than an HP or a Dell that's sort of meant for
because it's home office business.
Someone using it as a word processor and internet access. So, but again, it is so dependent on the particular hardware. The reality at the moment is if you want a top end graphics card, gaming graphics cards, you're looking at £1,500 just for the video card alone, which is extraordinary. You don't need that. £200 or £300 will get you something that'll run most things fine. But I'm going to say, if you want to start capturing video at the same time, like I do, there's a lot of overhead. There's a lot of computational overhead on both the physics side, so you need a decent processor, and a lot on the graphics side, so you need a decent graphics card. And as I say, if you're capturing video as well or doing anything else in the background, then you need extra overhead for those things.
Yeah. So in other words, if you're thinking about kind of recording videos for YouTube of yourself racing, that kind of thing, because you get things like, is it the Elgato streaming boxes? Those boxes that you plug in and then plug it into your PlayStation.
Yeah, I've got a separate. I actually use a separate PC to record my my racing videos. So the PC for the actual racing is just dedicated to the rig here. It doesn't have to worry about recording video. And I've got a second PC, the one I use for my video editing and everything else. Actually has an Elgato card in it to capture it.
All right, excellent. Is something like that quite expensive to buy, or is it the Elgato card? Are they quite reasonable?
I mean, in terms of sort of audio-visual hardware, my background years ago was in audio production. So in the scheme of things, it's not very expensive, but compared to a lot of other professional gear. But I think it was £250, something like that. So it's not a cheap thing to buy. But in the scheme of things, it could be so much worse. I mean, the competitors from the likes of Blackmagic and Red and the like that are on Avid, who are producing really high-end professional gear, you can add at least 10 to the end of that.
Yeah.
So in the scheme of things, cheap. On its own, not all that cheap.
Because a lot of people now, I mean, that's the thing, that the video gaming has really taken off in terms of like on YouTube, isn't it? People recording their own videos, streaming it out live, all of that seems to be growing quite a bit. There's lots of channels now that you can watch. I think a lot of our viewers have written in, that's one of the main questions I've had, is they like watching different channels. How can they do it themselves? How can they start something like that? What do they need? And so I've always, since this video, of saying, you need to get obviously the right stuff and the right kind of hardware to make it all work.
Start with the Black Falcon Mercedes hat, and then you go from there.
That's it. I'll refer them on to your channel.
I mean, I can talk a little bit about some of the process of how to get started and some do's and don'ts, if you like, Hugh. Or
that would be great, because that was my next thing. Advice for beginners setting out in sim racing. That was my final question.
Right. Well, I think we were sort of we were segueing, doing the YouTube thing a bit there. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about that more generally, and then we can swing into something.
That would be super.
I think the biggest piece of advice I could give for anyone who wants to start out on YouTube is to just do it.
Yeah.
Just start. It doesn't matter what your product is. It doesn't matter that it's not polished, because it won't be to start with. It doesn't matter how good you are at the game, because people are there for personalities. It doesn't matter if you're too shy to talk on camera to start with, but just start.
Yeah.
Biggest hurdle. It sounds like such sort of trite advice, but actually getting started is the biggest hurdle you'll ever face. And then after that, you can start refining. My process was very much, and it still is, every video I make, I sit down afterwards and I say, okay, what could I have done better in that? And I write down 2 or 3 things that I think I could have done better. And then for the next video, I try to improve at least one of them. So, the product 18 months in is not going to be the same as it is on day one. My videos have been hopefully improved.
They are very, very good. Yeah.
That's what I try to do. And the feedback I get is that it's continually improving, and I want to keep trying to find ways to do that. But to do that, you've kind of got to put yourself out there to start with and take some of the knocks. People know that the YouTube comment section is one of the most hostile places on earth. Yeah. But you've kind of got to run with it, and if people give you rubbish, then you deal with it. Either ignore them, and I think that's the absolute best piece of advice, is just to not engage, or talk to them, try and win them round. I know that there are people out there with the school of thought that they should respond to everyone, positive and negative. I'm not sure some people are there really to have a constructive conversation.
Yeah, they're invisible on the computer and they can say what they like, isn't it? And that's the kind of approach. But I only started doing videos earlier on this year when I started using the Zoom conferencing, because that worked really well for getting video and audio. So it allowed me to really use my YouTube channel quite a bit more, and kind of build up from there. And it's been fun, but trying to get them edited, it does take a bit of work. I mean, I use different ones. I use like Screencast, Amatic, what's the other one? I've got like a Video Pro type thing, which I just got off the Microsoft Store, to be fair. And that's actually worked quite well, but I think I do need to get more intricate software, I think, to kind of really make more of it.
It's a bit of a rabbit hole to go down. So I've worked in the AV industry for a long time, and it's quite natural to me, and I'm still find myself regularly out of my depth. So, but that's the joy of it. If you enjoy creating something, then part of the fun, part of the enjoyment is developing your craft and getting better at it. Yeah. And the same goes for sim racing. So in fact, your original question was advice to get started in sim racing. Well, the first thing would be just start, with whatever you've got. If you don't have a console or a PC, then you want to get started, go out and buy an Xbox or a PlayStation. There's no point in spending God knows how much on a sim rig and a PC and everything else. If you find out you're not going to enjoy it, go and buy a PlayStation 4, or even a second-hand one. Pick up a cheap wheel, a Logitech or a Thrustmaster, maybe even second-hand as well, off of eBay or Craigslist or whatever, and just see how it goes. You don't have to spend huge amounts of money, but I do think a wheel is important. You're never going to get the same.
It's not the feel. I mean, I've got the one behind me, and it's a Logitech G29, and now you can get them for 150 quid all in at Costco. So
are they really?
Yeah. It's a bit of a bargain, and I got the seat for 150 quid from Logitech as well. So that was the stuff for Amazon, I think it was. And even then, the price, as you say, price has come down. There's the second hand. It can be quite hard to get rid of old sim rigs sometimes. So there are bargains to be had. If you look around, people make their own rigs. If you're handy with the bit of timber and a saw, or you can weld. Then get out there and make something. No.
But I think we touched on this earlier. If you have a console and you want to take it a little bit more seriously, then start with a PC.
Yeah.
Whatever wheel you've got on your console will be fine to start with, but get your PC set up and just start spending some time. I mean, the piece of advice I give to every sim racer who's starting out, it doesn't matter what platform you're starting on, is that you're just going to have to drive expletive load of laps. You're gonna have to. You just are. It's gonna take hours and hours and hours, and just to get even competent. While you learn the feel, the way the sim behaves, and then you're gonna have to do that for every sim. Although it gets easier and easier.
Yeah,
and if a sim behaves in a predictable way, which most do, you can usually be pretty competent within a few laps. Sim Racing Expo, I jumped on a sim I've not really driven much before in a in a rig that I've never seen with equipment I've never used before. And yeah, sure, I was a second and a half slower than I would have been in my own rig at home, but you know, you understand it. Once you get up to a certain level and it all clicks, it's fine.
Yeah, aye, and you learn your trade. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm far from the fastest guy in the world because, well, I'm not. I spend a lot of my time making videos for YouTube rather than concentrating on going quickly. And I must admit, when we do the club races that we run on our Discord, which I'm going to give a little plug for now, if you do want to join in, particularly Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione races, come and find my videos on the internet. And there's a link to our Discord, and you can join us. We do sort of bi-weekly fun. We call them social races. The idea is we just sort of hang out and have a little bit of fun. But there are really fast guys at the front of the pack, and those really fast guys, if I want to hang with them and have a chance of being on the podium with them, then I have to put in work. You know, I have to put in 4 or 5 hours worth of prep for a race like that.
That's a lot.
You know, because I flip between all the sims. I drive everything, and the day I'm racing in a Assetto Corsa, I might have been doing something on iRacing or R Factor or something earlier in the day. So you jump in and it feels completely alien. And I do, that's how it should be. You should have to prepare to race against good guys.
Definitely. Now, Discord, just for some people who are maybe new and wondering what that might be, is that like it's its own platform for a kind of gaming discussion? Or
it's sort of like TeamSpeak or any other sort of, or Skype meets WhatsApp, I guess, with a message forum built in. I don't know how to describe it, but it's this beautiful sort of community-focused platform that allows you to build a sort of message forum and have audio chat already built into it. So for running things like club racing, it's brilliant because you can have long-winded discussion threads where people talk about, what damper settings they're using on their cars or share setups and all of that other stuff. But then it can sort of very dynamically just switch over, click one button and then you're talking like you and I are, Hugh. So being able to just go from having discussions, sharing setups, to being in the race and chatting with your mates while you're going for it in the click of one button is just fantastic. Yeah. And for someone like me who has tried to build a community around what I do on YouTube and elsewhere, it's fantastic for everyone to just be able to jump in, come in one place, have a big open discussion, and it keeps a lot of the questions public, which is good because then everyone can learn from the responses. And I think it just makes everyone feel a better sense of community than hiding all of this stuff behind emails and And one very quick question: for people who obviously they need good internet connections, would you recommend everything be hardwired into your computer or your PlayStation or whatever? Does it even with the best hardware, even with the best Wi-Fi setup, there's some latency there. So I would hardwire everything where possible. I haven't at the moment up in the sim racing because we just redecorated and I need to relay the cables, and we had a little connection issue just before we started recording this, Hugh. So I definitely advocate hardwiring.
Yeah, I'm about to get that done. I'm going to get my router and everything all get hardwired from one side of the house to the other. So that means I'll hopefully get better internet and better quality for the whole thing. But no, that's super. Well, that's great. Well, I was going to say you've also your subscriptions have gone up a huge amount. Your channel has grown well. Tell me a little bit about that and how it's grown over the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's been crazy. At the beginning of this year, I think just over the Christmas period, I hit 5,000 subscribers, which is a big milestone. And then by March, it had hit 10,000. And now we're in September, it's at 22 or 23, something like that.
Which is great.
I've been really busy the last couple of weeks. I haven't checked. I'm not going to pretend I'm one of those cool guys who's like, I don't know how many subscribers I have. Because every YouTuber I've ever spoken to, it doesn't matter how big, I'm talking about people with millions as well. They check all the time. Anyone that says otherwise is lying.
I've got 29 subscribers, so I know how many I've got.
We're totally validated by those numbers. But beyond all the jokes, it is a useful measure of not necessarily how good the content is, but how good you are at using the platform and getting that message to people. But I create some videos that I think this is the best thing I've ever done. This is amazing. This is so interesting, and it gets half the number of views as a regular video. And I think, what the hell went on there? And you have to learn from the analytics and dive deep into that.
Yeah.
I did a video for Robo Race last week, the AI self-driving racing series that's just
I
don't know if you saw the car at Goodwood.
Goodwood, yeah, it looks incredible. Yeah.
Well, I did a short documentary, like this 15-minute film about what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve, and I thought, this is really cool. This is something that people are going to really get behind. I can get a good groundswell, and this is going to be a big video. And it performed about as well as an average video. And with the amount of work involved in that was a little bit disappointing. But then again, you can do something, just as stupid as I did a video just like, why do sim racers wear gloves? Because I keep getting questions about why I wear gloves.
That one. Yeah.
The simple answer is I've got an expensive wheel that's got Alcantara on it. And Alcantara, if you've ever got a road car with Alcantara and you've had it for a couple of years, you'll know how disgusting Alcantara gets after you've handled it with your hands. So, I thought, well, I've spent good money on this. What's another 30 quid on a pair of gloves? Also, there's some other benefits that, it does improve grip a little bit. I've got a pretty high strength direct drive wheel, so it can sort of, when you hit the bumps, it can sort of slide a little bit in your hands. And if you're racing for a long time, it's certainly, like 5 or 6 hour session, it's certainly possible to get sort of small blisters and stuff and things like that. So there's a practical element, but it's mostly I just don't want to wreck my nice things.
Yeah.
But I did that video, and it's like, it's 10,000 views in the first day or something stupid. I think.
Oh, that's great, though. That's good.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely to have that, but it would be better to be able to predict that a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's the whole game. That is the whole game with YouTube. If you want to take it to a sort of professional or even full-time level, and I'm not there yet. You need to be able to confidently predict, okay, this content is going to work. This content is going to be really propel my channel forward and bring in a load of new subscribers, and then say, well, this next one is really for the current subscriber base because I want them to be happy. They're there for this video on the Assetto Corsa mod or something, the really niche stuff. You have to be able to balance, propelling the channel forward and gaining a wider audience, but also keeping the core audience happy and all of those kind of things.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, one of the things I was watching was when Super GT did his go-kart racing. And he was amazed at he had about 1 million views of his go-karting videos. And it's incredible because I don't think he thought that was going to be the case, that it would. But I think people quite like the real-life action as well, and to see his skills going through the field in go-karts.
They do, and what I think one of the reasons that works for him, and I've got a lot of time for Steve, he's a really good guy, is that he's not a go-kart YouTube channel. Yeah, he's got this big audience. I think he's just hit 250,000 subscribers, built up through GT Sport and Forza and all the other stuff he does. Those guys are going to watch him karting. Why wouldn't they? It's total crossover. But I haven't done the research on this, but I bet you there aren't many go-kart channels that have got 250,000 subscribers. Yeah. So when you've got someone like Super GT that comes along and puts out a karting video, and his audience is already watching that, so he gets 100,000 views in the first day or whatever off of his own audience. YouTube's going to promote that to anyone else who's ever searched the word karting. And they're going to be like, oh, cool, a really well-produced karting video. And that's going to work insanely well for him. Yeah. But it's only because he didn't have a karting audience to start with. I assume that is totally.
Definitely. It's a different group, and it transfers really well, I think, overall. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and they're great videos as well. I mean, that's also a really important part of it, is the video has to be good as well.
The content is excellent. Maybe that's why I've only got 29 subscribers, but it was but growing. But no, that's fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you giving your time this morning, Chris. It's been really, really good fun talking to you, and we've got a host of information for all our viewers and listeners to take home with them and to kind of improve the racing experience and to help them with their tactics as to how they go forward in sim racing and things like that. But we'll finish it there. But stay on the line, though, because I'll have a quick chat afterwards. But you've been listening and watching the Car Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick, and my very special guest, Chris Haye. Remember,
thanks, Hugh.
You're very welcome to drive fast and try not to crash. At cardioadvisor.co.uk, we can help you save thousands of pounds on your next new car or van. And we can also source second-hand cars as well. and we can save you money on car rental, whether it be in the UK and abroad. Just click our rental link on the website. And we'll give you a free gift if you trade in your car with We Buy Any Car using our special website link. So go to the website now and see how much you can save. And it's back to the show. Thanks for listening. For more information, go to cardioadvisor.co.uk and you can see all the special offers that we have on the website. And remember, we have our YouTube channel, which is at Hugh Hattrick, and also we have our podcasts on Podbean, on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Anchor FM. And if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to our shows, or you can donate every month for just £1. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you soon.